My child, I see you sitting there in the quiet. I know what happens when the rest of the world goes to sleep, and the silence of the night finally settles around you. That is when the noise inside your mind grows the loudest. Isn't it I watch as you stare at the ceiling, feeling that familiar heavy weight pressing down on your chest. You are so utterly exhausted, yet sleep feels like a luxury you simply cannot afford right now. Your thoughts are racing, spinning in endless circles, chasing shadows that seem to grow larger with every passing hour. I am right here with you in this very moment. You do not need to hide the trembling of your hands from me. You do not need to straighten your posture, wipe your eyes, or pretend that everything is perfectly fine. I know it is not fine right now. I know you are tired, not just physically tired from a long day, but a deep, bone-weary spiritual exhaustion that comes from carrying a burden you were never meant to hold alone. I see the specific mountain standing in your path, casting long, cold shadows over your days. I know about the financial strain that makes your stomach tighten every time you look at the mail or check your bank account. I see the quiet panic that grips you when you calculate the numbers, wondering how you are going to make ends meet, how you will provide, how you will keep the roof over your head and the lights turned on. I also see the physical ailments, the terrifying uncertainty of illness, the doctor's words that echo in your mind and steal your peace. I know the aches in your body and soul as you wonder if healing will ever come. And I see that profound, paralyzing fear of failure, the terrifying thought that you might let down the people who depend on you, that you might not be enough, that all your efforts will somehow fall short. You have been carrying this immense pressure, balancing the fragile pieces of your life, terrified that if you make one wrong move, everything will shatter. You wake up with this anxiety. You walk with it through your day, and it sits beside you on the edge of your bed every single night. It has become a heavy, suffocating blanket that you cannot seem to throw off. What breaks my heart, my precious child, is how incredibly lonely you feel in the midst of all this. You are surrounded by people at work in your community, perhaps even in your own home, yet you feel completely isolated. I watch you put on a brave face every morning. I see the carefully constructed smile you wear for your family, the reassuring tone you use with your friends, the way you nod and tell everyone that you are doing just fine. You have become an expert at hiding the trembling of your spirit. You hold it all together for everyone else because you believe that if you show your cracks, if you reveal just how terrified you actually are, it will all fall apart. You are acting as the anchor for so many others. But inside, you feel like you are drifting alone on a violent, dark ocean, searching for a lighthouse that you cannot seem to find. You have convinced yourself that no one would understand the depth of your panic, so you swallow your tears. You choke back your cries for help. You carry this crushing anxiety entirely alone, locking it away in the darkest rooms of your heart. But you are never alone, not for a single second. I am intimately aware of every tear that has fallen onto your pillow when no one else is looking. I know the exact rhythm of your racing heart. I hear the quiet, broken pleas for help that you whisper when you cannot even find the strength to form complete sentences. When you simply close your eyes and sigh, feeling too overwhelmed to even pray. I hear that sigh as the loudest, most desperate prayer. I am not standing far off, watching you struggle from a distance, shaking my head at your weakness. No, I am right beside you, in the very center of your darkness. I am the God who draws near to the brokenhearted. And right now, your heart feels completely shattered. I have not come to preach at you or scold you for feeling afraid. I have not come to tell you to just try harder or to dismiss the very real pain you are experiencing. The storms you are facing are real. The waves crashing against your life are high. The winds are fierce. I am here simply to sit with you in this dark room, to place my hand gently over your trembling hand, and to let you know that I am holding you. I want you to take a deep breath right now. Just breathe. Release the tension in your shoulders. Let go of the desperate need to figure everything out in this exact second. You do not need to be strong for me. I am not asking you to suddenly manufacture a bravery you do not possess. I am not demanding that you wipe your tears and march confidently into the battle when your legs can barely hold you up. It is okay that you are afraid. It is okay that you feel completely overwhelmed. You are human, wrapped in frail flesh, facing mountains that are too tall for you to climb on your own. I designed you with limits and a deep need for comfort. I never expected you to carry the weight of your world on your own shoulders. So please, stop pretending. Stop trying to prove how capable you are. Stop trying to hold back the floodgates. If you need to cry, let the tears fall. If you need to grieve the plans that have fallen apart, grieve them. If you are angry, confused, or deeply hurt, lay it all out before me. I am big enough to handle your raw, unfiltered honesty. My love for you is not fragile. It is not conditional on your performance or your unwavering confidence. My love is a steadfast fortress, a safe harbor, where you can finally anchor your exhausted soul. Before we ever talk about solutions, before we look ahead to the dawn, I just want you to rest in the safety of my presence. I am the creator of the universe, the one who calls the stars by name and commands the oceans to stay within their boundaries. Yet my greatest desire in this moment is simply to comfort you. I see the beauty in your fragile, trembling heart. I see how hard you have tried. I see how desperately you have fought to keep your head above water. You have fought a good fight, but you are swinging your sword at shadows, exhausting yourself against an enemy you cannot defeat on your own. I want to wrap you in a peace that transcends all of your human understanding. I want to quiet the turbulent waters of your mind. You have spent so much time staring at the storm, bracing for the next wave, that your eyes are burning from the salt and the wind. Close your eyes. Turn your face away from the roaring thunder for just a moment and lean your head against my chest. Listen to the steady, calm rhythm of my heartbeat. There is no expectation of sudden courage here. Right now, in this sacred, quiet space, the only thing required of you is to allow yourself to be held. Let the reality of my unconditional love sink deep into the weary places of your spirit. The anxiety currently suffocating you did not appear overnight, and I know it feels permanent in your mind. It feels like a survival instinct, a necessary shield you must carry to protect yourself from further disaster. You have learned to expect the worst, holding your breath, and constantly bracing for the next piece of bad news. But I want to gently show you something about this heavy shield you are carrying. This anxiety, this relentless need to guard yourself, is tied to a burden I never asked you to shoulder. As you sit here with me safe, in the stillness, I want you to softly examine the grip you have on your life. Your hands are bruised and bleeding from holding on so tightly from trying to manage the wind and command the waves. We are going to look at why you feel this desperate need to hold everything together, and why your deepest fears are quietly rooted in a belief that if you do not control the outcome, no one else will. From the time you were young, the world taught you a very specific, quiet lie. It taught you that safety is something you must manufacture with your own two hands. You learned early on, perhaps through deep disappointments, broken promises, or sudden unexpected losses, that depending on others is a terrible risk. So you made a silent vow to yourself to always stay one step ahead of the pain. You convinced yourself that if you could just anticipate every possible disaster, if you could just map out every single scenario in your mind before it ever happened, you could protect yourself from the agony of being caught off guard. You call it being responsible. You call it being prepared. You call it wisdom. But my child, I see it for what it truly is. It is the exhausting, heavy, and unending illusion of control. You have taken the natural human desire for security and twisted it into a relentless burden that you carry on your back every hour of the day. You spend your waking hours attempting to manage variables that were never meant to fit in the palms of your fragile hands. The economy, the ultimate outcome of your health, the quiet choices of the people you love, the hidden timeline of your future. These are massive, intricate threads woven into a tapestry that only I can see in its entirety. Yet you stand there every day, your jaw clenched and your shoulders tight, gripping those threads until your knuckles turn white. You are desperately trying to weave the future yourself. You think that by worrying about tomorrow, you are somehow softening its blows today. But look at your weary heart. Look at how exhausted you are from fighting a ghost. Worrying does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It only empties today of its strength. Over the years, you have used this anxiety to build towering thick walls around your heart. You believe these walls of worry are your greatest defense mechanism against a world that feels unsafe. You think that if you stay highly alert, if you continuously replay worst-case scenarios, the enemy cannot sneak up on you and steal your joy. You believe anxiety is the sentry that keeps you safe. But let me show you what these walls have actually done. They have not kept the storms out. They have only locked you inside. This fortress of fear you have so carefully constructed has become a solitary confinement of your own making. You sit alone in the dark, surrounded by the towering bricks of what-ifs and if-onlys, feeling entirely isolated, even when you are sitting in a room full of people who love you. This is why the loneliness aches so deeply in your chest, even when you are smiling. You cannot experience the warmth of true connection when you are constantly standing guard at the watchtower, scanning the horizon for the next tragedy. You cannot feel my arms around you when your own arms are crossed so tightly across your chest in a defensive stance. You have convinced yourself that vulnerability is dangerous, that letting down your guard will inevitably lead to ruin. The world may have broken your trust, and the people in it may have let you down, but I am not them. I am not the shifting shadows of your past. When you build these walls of worry to protect yourself, you are unknowingly building a barrier between your trembling heart and my perfect peace. You are choosing the cold, hard certainty of your anxiety over the warm, inviting mystery of my grace. And it is breaking you piece by piece. I want to introduce you to a safety that your mind has forgotten, a sanctuary that requires no bricks, no armor, and no frantic planning. It is the beautiful, terrifying, and profoundly freeing act of surrender. In your mind, surrender sounds like failure. It sounds like giving up, raising a white flag to your enemies, and allowing the absolute worst to happen. You equate surrender with being a victim. But in my kingdom, surrender is the exact opposite of defeat. It is the ultimate victory over the heavy, crushing burden of self-reliance. It is the moment you finally stop fighting the rushing current, lie back on the water, and realize that the ocean will hold you. True vulnerability with me is vastly safer than the strongest, thickest defenses you could ever build on your own. When you finally open your trembling hands and say, I cannot control this, you are not failing. You are simply agreeing with reality. You are stepping into the truth that you were created to be sustained, not to be the sustainer. Your anxiety is the physical symptom of a soul that has taken on the job description of God. But you were never meant to carry the weight of the universe, my child. You were only ever meant to be held by the one who does. I am asking you to risk trusting me. I am asking you to believe that if you dismantle these walls of worry, brick by brick, you will not be destroyed by the oncoming storm. Instead, you will finally be free enough to run into my arms. Your strongest defense is not your ability to foresee tragedy. Your strongest defense is your absolute surrender to my unfailing love. You look at the chaotic storms swirling around your life right now, the winds howling through your finances, the rain beating against your physical health, the turbulent waters rocking your family. And you ask me why I have abandoned you. You wonder why, if I am so powerful and so loving, I would allow this chaos to reign and threaten everything you have built. But hear my gentle whisper cutting through the wind. These storms are not signs of my absence. They are the untamed areas of your life where you have not yet invited my sovereignty. You have given me your Sundays. You have given me your quick prayers before meals. You have given me the parts of your life that are already neat, tidy, and manageable. But you have kept a fierce, white-knuckled grip on the things that scare you the most. You have placed warnings on the doors of your deepest fears, deciding that you must handle those specific crises entirely alone. You have not allowed me to step into the boat with you in the middle of these storms, because you have been too busy frantically bailing water with your own hands. You are fighting so hard, swinging blindly at the crashing waves, completely unaware that you are fighting battles I have already won. The victory was secured long before the storm ever gathered on your horizon. The cross was not just a symbol of forgiveness. It was the final triumphant declaration that nothing in this world, no financial ruin, no physical sickness, no earthly failure can ever separate you from my eternal provision and care. But as long as you insist on holding the wheel, as long as you refuse to let me steer, you will continue to feel the terrifying jolt of every single wave. Take a quiet, honest look at this strategy of yours. Look closely at what this intense self-reliance has truly brought you. Has the constant worrying added a single day to your life? Has the endless agonizing plotting changed the reality of your circumstances in any meaningful way? Has staying up until 3 a.m, running through every disastrous possibility, ever actually prevented a trial from coming to your doorstep? No. It has only stolen your rest. It has only eroded your joy. It has only left you fragile, easily triggered, and utterly exhausted. Your current strategy is failing you. My child, the walls are crumbling. The anxiety is spilling over, and you are running entirely on empty. And I say this not to shame you, not to scold you for your lack of faith, but to set you completely free. It is a beautiful, necessary realization when you finally admit that your way is not working. The exhaustion you feel right now is the gentle end of yourself, which is exactly where the beginning of my grace is found. You are so tired because you have been trying to outsmart a world that is fundamentally beyond your control. It is time to lay down the illusion. It is time to recognize that you cannot worry your way into safety, and you cannot control your way into peace. The pain of this realization is making you ready. It is breaking up the hard, dry soil of your heart, creating a deep emotional readiness to try a path you have been too afraid to walk until now. You are finally tired enough to stop running. You are finally empty enough to be filled. The stage is set for a profound exchange, a holy trade, where you hand over the heavy, broken pieces of your control, and I give you something far better. So I am extending an invitation to you right now in this very moment. I am asking you to bring those specific heavy burdens out of the dark and into my light. You know exactly which ones I mean. It is the family conflict tearing at your heart, where every conversation feels like stepping on broken glass, and you have exhausted yourself trying to mend a bridge you simply cannot fix alone. It is the health report hanging over your head, like a dark cloud, making you analyze every ache and pain with quiet terror. It is the deeply uncertain future, the financial ledger keeping you awake long past midnight, the career path that feels like it is crumbling beneath your feet. Bring them all to me. Do not leave the most terrifying ones hidden behind your back, thinking they are too messy, too complex, or too far gone for me to handle. I want the heaviest ones. I want the situations that make your stomach drop and your chest tighten just thinking about them. Look down at your hands. My child. See how tightly your fingers are curled inward. See how your knuckles are white with the sheer force of your desperate grip. You are holding on to these problems as if your intense worrying is the only glue keeping your life from falling apart. But the grip is only bruising you. It is time to release the breath you have been holding. It is time to make the trade. I know that opening your hands feels incredibly dangerous. The enemy has whispered that if you let go of your worry, if you stop trying to manage every detail of the crisis, everything will crash to the ground and shatter. But I am asking you to recognize the profound difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up is throwing your hands in the air in despair, walking away, and believing the situation is utterly hopeless. Giving up is the absolute absence of faith, but letting go is an active, beautiful, and courageous choice to transfer the weight from your frail shoulders to my infinite strength. It is deliberately stepping back so the creator of the universe can step in. When you pry your fingers off the steering wheel of your life, you are not abandoning the car. You are finally letting the rightful driver take control. I am not asking you to stop caring about your family, your health, or your future. I am asking you to stop trying to be the savior of them. I am the savior. I have broad shoulders, and I never grow weary. I hold the entire universe in the span of my hand. Surely, I can hold this situation for you. Allow yourself the profound relief of whispering, "This is too heavy for me." That is not a statement of defeat. It is the most honest, liberating prayer you can ever pray. This requires a deep, beautiful humility. It requires you to lay down your pride, the part of you that wants to earn your own safety, that wants to prove you can handle it all, that wants to fix the unfixable. Humility is simply agreeing with me that you are human, that you have real limits, and that you desperately need a father. Trust is the action that immediately follows that humility. Trust is the deliberate spiritual motion of lifting the burden out of your own mind and placing it onto my altar. I want you to visualize this right now. Close your eyes and imagine the heavy box you have been carrying, the one filled with all your anxieties about tomorrow, all the medical terms you have researched in the middle of the night, all the unpaid bills, all the broken conversations. Feel the abrasive cardboard against your skin. Feel the crushing weight pressing down on your spine. Now imagine walking toward me. See me standing before you. My arms extended, my eyes filled with absolute compassion for your exhaustion. Hand the box to me. Feel the physical shift as the weight leaves your arms and is completely absorbed by mine. Notice how I do not buckle under the weight. Notice how easily I hold what has been crushing you for months. As you release that weight, a tremendous cascading sense of relief is meant to wash over you. Let it wash over you now. Feel the tension physically leaving your neck, your back, your jaw. You do not have to hold it all together anymore. The universe will not collapse because you decided to rest. The sun will still rise tomorrow. The earth will still turn, and your life will still be meticulously guided by my hand, even if you stop worrying about it. When you feel the temptation to reach out and snatch the burden back, and that temptation will certainly come, I want you to gently pull your hands back. Remind your racing mind that the situation is currently in the safest hands it could possibly be in. You are transferring ownership of the problem. You are stepping out of the role of the general, trying to command the troops and foresee every ambush. And you are stepping back into the role of a beloved child, holding the hand of a father who has never lost a battle. You are finally allowing yourself to be small, to be cared for, to be loved without condition and without expectation of performance. There is a foundational principle of my kingdom that you must understand if you are ever going to walk in true freedom. It is this: my peace comes before my miracle. You have been waiting for the miracle to happen so that you can finally feel peace. You have been waiting for the bank account to fill up the lab results, to come back clear, the prodigal child, to return home, believing that once the external storm stops, your internal trembling will finally cease. But my kingdom works from the inside out. I require you to receive my peace in the very middle of the raging storm, while the waves are still crashing, while the wind is still howling, while the answers are still completely obscured by the fog. Why? Because if your peace depends on your circumstances, it is not peace at all. It is just temporary relief. I want to give you an unshakable foundational calm that the world cannot understand and cannot take away. But to receive this divine peace, your hands must be empty. If you are clutching your fear, gripping your desire for control so tightly that your knuckles are white, you have absolutely no room to receive the courage I am trying to hand you. You must empty your hands of fear before you can hold my courage. You cannot pour fresh, pure water into a vessel that is already full of bitter, stagnant anxiety. You have to pour out the worry to make room for my spirit. This act of surrender is the pouring out. As you release the family conflict to me, as you release the paralyzing fear of illness to me, as you release the timeline of your uncertain future to me, you are emptying the vessel. You are clearing out the suffocating clutter of panic, making a quiet, open space in your heart for my promises to take root. Think of your heart like a garden that has been completely overgrown with the thorny, tangled weeds of anxiety. These weeds have choked out the sunlight. They have stolen the vital nutrients from the soil. The act of surrender is the act of pulling those weeds out by the roots. It is painful work, and it leaves the ground feeling bare and vulnerable for a moment. But that bare turned soil is exactly what is needed for the seeds of my courage to be planted. You are preparing the ground of your spirit for a massive transformation. You are creating the sacred stillness required to hear my voice clearly again. Let the relief settle deep into your bones right now. You are not responsible for fixing the things that are broken beyond your repair. You are only responsible for bringing the broken pieces to me. Let that truth sink in and dismantle the heavy yoke of responsibility you have worn for far too long. I am the restorer. I am the healer. I am the provider. You are simply the vessel, the beloved child, learning to walk in the cool of the garden with me again. The paralyzing anxiety that has dictated your days is losing its grip on you right now. As you breathe out your fear, breathe in my grace. As you unclench your fists, feel the gentle, steady warmth of my hands wrapping around yours. You have made the trade. You have laid down the heavy armor of your own understanding, and you are standing before me, vulnerable, empty-handed, and completely safe. You have cleared the space. The suffocating noise of control has been silenced, replaced by the profound, beautiful quiet of a soul that has finally decided to trust. In this new open space, free from the chaotic debris of your own striving, we can now begin to build something completely different. We are going to build true courage. But before we lay the first stone upon this cleared ground, we must completely tear down the world's definition of what it actually means to be brave. For so long you have carried a heavy, invisible shame because your hands are still trembling. You have looked at your knocking knees, your racing pulse, and the exhausted tears that sting the corners of your eyes, and you have told yourself that you are failing. You have watched others stand on platforms of roaring confidence, projecting absolute certainty, and you have quietly decided that you simply do not have what it takes. The world has told you that bravery is the complete absence of fear. It has taught you that to be a true warrior, you must never flinch, never doubt, and never feel the icy breath of panic on your neck. And because you feel all of those things deeply and constantly, you have disqualified yourself. You have labeled yourself a coward in the quiet courts of your own mind. My child, I want to wash that cruel lie completely out of your spirit right now. I do not look at your trembling hands with disappointment. I do not measure your faith by the total absence of your fear. I want you to understand that true God-given courage is not a sudden magical evaporation of your anxiety. It is not waking up one morning with a chest puffed out and a complete disregard for the dangers ahead. If courage required the absence of fear, it would require absolutely no faith at all. I am not asking you to manufacture a hollow confidence or to shout down your worries with an angrier voice. I am asking you to redefine bravery entirely. Biblical courage, the kind that moves mountains and parts seas, often looks incredibly fragile from the outside. It looks like quiet obedience in the face of profound uncertainty. It looks like whispering a prayer when your voice is cracking and your throat is tight. It looks like taking the next small step forward while still wiping the tears from your face. When you handed me your heavy box of worries just a moment ago, you did not instantly become an emotionless soldier. You became a dependent child holding your father's hand, and that is exactly what I require. I do not need a perfect, fearless performance from you. I only need a willing, yielding heart. Think about the heroes of the faith, the ones whose stories you have read and admired in the quiet hours of the night. You see their triumphs, the giants falling, the lions' mouths closing, and the turbulent seas parting. But I saw the intimate moments before the miracles. I saw their hesitation. I heard their desperate, frantic prayers in the dark. I felt their human frailty just as intimately as I feel yours today. They were not brave because they were invincible. They were brave because they chose to move their feet even while their hearts were pounding fiercely against their ribs. That is the gentle, quiet courage I am imparting to you now. It is the willingness to walk into the unknown, not because you know exactly what is waiting for you in the shadows, but because you know exactly who is walking beside you. You do not need to muster up the strength to fight the battle yourself. You only need the courage to stay close to me. When your exhausted mind tells you that you are too weak for the road ahead, I want you to remember my eternal promise. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Let those words sink deep into the weary, battered places of your soul. Your weakness is not a barrier to my power. It is the very vessel that carries it. For years you have tried to hide your frailty, trying to present a strong, polished version of yourself to the world and even to me. You thought that your moments of sheer panic disqualified you from my peace, but it is in the exact places where your human strength gives out that my divine strength is waiting to take over. When you admit that you are terrified, you are not failing a test of faith. You are simply stepping out of the way so that my grace can step in. I am lifting the crushing burden of expectation off your shoulders right now. You do not have to be the strong one anymore. You do not have to pretend you have all the answers. Your imperfect, faltering steps are incredibly beautiful to me. Every time you choose to trust me, even when your entire body is screaming at you to run back to your old walls of control, you are displaying a bravery that echoes through the heavens. I see the incredible courage it takes for you just to get out of bed on the mornings when the weight of your circumstances feels entirely unmanageable. The world may not applaud you for simply putting your feet on the floor and breathing in and out, but I do. I see the profound bravery in your quiet decision to keep going. I saw the courage it took to make that difficult phone call, to face that terrifying financial spreadsheet, to sit in that sterile waiting room, awaiting the doctor's news. You felt like you were falling apart in those moments. But I saw a warrior choosing to face the storm, rather than run from it. Erase the shame you've attached to your tears. Tears are not a sign of surrender to the enemy. They are the natural release of a heart bearing a heavy load. Let go of the toxic idea that a good believer never cries, never doubts, and never shakes. The most profound acts of faith are often birthed in the very middle of weeping. From this moment forward, we are changing the definition of a victory in your life. A victory is no longer defined by how confident you felt while facing the trial. A victory is simply choosing to hold my hand and take one step forward. That is the gentle form of bravery we will practice together. It is not a sudden roaring courage. It is a steady, continuous reliance on my character. When the phone rings and your first instinct is panic, true courage is taking a split second to whisper, "Lord, you are with me," before you answer. When the bills pile up, true courage is choosing not to spin into a spiral of despair, but instead opening your hands and saying, "Provide for me, Father." It is a daily reliance on my strength, rather than an exhausting burst of your own. It is a soft, continuous turning of your attention back to my face every time the fierce wind distracts you. As you practice this new quiet courage, you will begin to notice a profound shift in how you view yourself. You will gradually transition from feeling deeply inadequate and perpetually afraid to feeling capable, supported, and securely anchored. You are not inadequate. My child, you have simply been using the wrong measuring stick for a very long time. You have been measuring your bravery by your own lack of fear instead of measuring your safety by my overwhelming presence. The immense pressure is finally off. You are allowed to be a human being, intricately flawed and entirely dependent on my grace. I am not rushing you out of your vulnerability. I am inviting you to stay right here, to lean into this gentle courage, and to let it become your natural daily rhythm. Do you feel the difference in the atmosphere? The shame is lifting. The heavy, dark cloak of disappointment you have worn over your own perceived weakness is unraveling and falling away. You are standing in the warm light of my truth, and your trembling is not a sin. It is a profound opportunity for trust. You are learning to walk all over again, stepping out of the heavy armor of your own rigid control and into the lightweight garments of my peace. Every halting, uncertain step you take in this new space is a powerful testament to your faith. I celebrate your willingness. I celebrate the quiet, resolute yes in your spirit that decides to try again tomorrow, even when yesterday was hard. Now that you realize you do not have to be perfectly confident to be incredibly brave, you are finally ready for the true journey ahead. But this journey of walking in my courage is a process requiring endurance. Your immediate reality may not shift the exact moment you choose to trust me. There are miles of road ahead where you will have to practice this gentle bravery daily. As you place your feet on this new path, relying entirely on me, we must carefully prepare your heart for the spaces in between the promise and the fulfillment. That space, this vast, quiet, seemingly empty stretch of road between the moment you hand me your burden and the moment you see the physical resolution, is what I call the wilderness. I know exactly what happens when you wake up the next morning after choosing to trust, and the mountain is still standing right where it was yesterday. You look around, expecting the circumstances to have instantly dissolved, but the bank account still looks the same. The health diagnosis has not magically vanished overnight, and the silence in that broken relationship is still deafening. The initial relief of letting go begins to wear off, replaced by a creeping, familiar frustration. You wonder if your surrender actually worked. You wonder if I heard your prayers at all. And I know how deeply you despise this wilderness, my child. You want to skip past this difficult chapter. You want to fast forward the story directly to the victory, to the answered prayer, to the moment of celebration. But I am asking you to stay here with me for a little while because this difficult space is far more important than you realize. When the breakthrough does not happen instantly, your mind immediately begins to search for a reason. You start to analyze your own behavior, looking for a flaw in your faith. The enemy is quick to whisper that you are in this holding pattern because you did something wrong, because your prayers were not eloquent enough, or because your past mistakes have permanently disqualified you from my favor. He wants you to believe that I am withholding my goodness as a form of harsh divine discipline. You look at the barren landscape around you, and assume it is a prison cell designed to teach you a painful lesson. I want to look you in the eyes right now and tell you a vital truth. This wilderness is not a punishment. I do not use silence to torture my children, and I do not delay. My promise is simply to watch you squirm under the weight of uncertainty. The waiting season is never a penalty box for imperfect behavior or a consequence of a faltering prayer. It is instead a deeply sacred place of preparation. I lead you into the wilderness not to break you down, but to build you up in ways that the comfort of immediate relief never could. Think about the physical body I designed for you. If you want to build physical strength, you cannot simply sit in a comfortable chair and wish for muscles to grow. You have to lift heavy things. You have to encounter resistance. The muscle fibers must be stretched, challenged, and pushed past their current limits before they can become stronger. Your spirit operates in exactly the same way. If I were to instantly remove every obstacle the second you asked, if I cleared every path before your foot ever struck a stone, your spiritual muscles would completely atrophy. You would remain an infant in your faith, dependent on constant immediate gratification to believe in my love. The wilderness provides the exact resistance you need to grow. Every day you wake up and choose to trust me, even when nothing in the physical realm has changed. You are lifting a heavy weight. You are stretching your spiritual endurance. You are developing a profound resilience that will anchor you for the rest of your life. This season is developing the fortitude necessary for you to safely carry the weight of the blessing that is coming. I know the waiting feels absolutely agonizing. You live by the clock, measuring your life in days, weeks, and passing years. You see time slipping through your fingers, and a quiet panic sets in. You fear that if the answer does not come by your specific deadline, it will be too late. You worry that the window of opportunity is closing, that the resources will dry up, or that the damage will become permanent. But I am not bound by your calendar, and my timing is never dictated by human urgency. I exist outside of time, seeing the beginning and the end simultaneously. I want you to plant this truth deep in your trembling heart. A delay is not a denial. When I say, wait, I am not saying no. When I ask you to stand still, I am not abandoning you to the harsh elements of the unknown. Often, I am delaying the visible miracle because the hidden masterpiece is not yet finished. You see a frustrating pause, but I see a critical period of divine alignment. I am moving pieces on a board you cannot see, preparing the environment, the people, and the circumstances, so that when the breakthrough finally arrives, it is perfect, lasting, and far more beautiful than the rushed temporary solution you were begging for. It is here in the fires of uncertainty that your true character is forged. Anyone can praise me when the seas are calm and the sun is shining. Anyone can talk about faith when their bills are paid, their body is healthy, and their family is whole. But a faith that is never tested is a faith that cannot be trusted to weather the real storms of life. Right now, in the intense heat of waiting, impurities are being burned away. Your superficial attachments, your need for control, and your reliance on the unpredictable world are being stripped back. What remains is something vastly more precious than gold. It is an unwavering trust that declares, even if the fig tree does not blossom, even if there are no grapes on the vine, I will still rejoice. This is the kind of hope that does not shatter when the wind blows. It is the kind of endurance that allows you to walk through the darkest valleys without being paralyzed by terror. You are not just waiting for a change in your situation. You are being completely rebuilt from the inside out. I know there are days when the silence makes you feel as though I have turned my back on you. You look for grand signs, for parted clouds or booming voices, and when you see only the ordinary dusty path ahead, you feel profound isolation. But just because you cannot see my hands working does not mean they are idle. I am right beside you in this wilderness. I am the shade on your right hand when the sun beats down relentlessly. I am the quiet stream, providing just enough water for you to make it through one more day. Think of a mighty oak tree in the dead of winter. The branches are bare, the leaves are gone, and to the naked eye, the tree appears completely dead. But beneath the frozen soil, the roots are actively pushing deeper into the earth, seeking hidden sources of water, anchoring themselves firmly against the coming spring storms. The most vital life-sustaining work is happening entirely out of sight. That is exactly what is happening within your own spirit right now. You are growing deep roots. You are pushing further into my word seeking. My face, with a desperation and authenticity you never would have known if the answer had come easily. The depths of our intimacy are being expanded in this dry season. I am actively working behind the scenes of your life, connecting details that seem utterly unrelated, and moving obstacles that you do not even know exist yet. Do not rush this sacred process. Do not despise these days of waiting, for they are meticulously weaving together the most vital chapter of your growth story. If you try to force the door open before it is time, you will step into a room you are not spiritually mature enough to inhabit. Let the wilderness do its complete work in you. Embrace the slow, steady forging of your soul. Stop looking at the calendar with dread, and stop holding your breath for the scenery to change. As you surrender the timeline back to me, you will find that the waiting is no longer an agonizing pause, but a beautiful, purposeful journey. And as you stop rushing the clock, you will realize that you must learn to dwell safely right here in the present moment, finding a profound, unshakable calm, long before the clouds ever begin to clear. To find this unshakable calm while the clouds are still dark, we must deliberately shift where your eyes are resting. I know the wind is still howling right outside your window. I know the waves are still violently crashing against the sides of your fragile boat. You have been waiting for the storm to break, desperately, holding on, believing that once the winds finally die down and the sun breaks through the gray, you will at last be able to exhale and feel secure. But, my child, I am asking you to do something that feels entirely backward to your human mind, something that requires you to step completely out of your natural instincts. I am asking you to exhale right now. I am inviting you to discover a deep breathing rest in the very center of the chaos, while the thunder is still shaking the floorboards beneath your feet. We must firmly establish a vital, life-altering truth in your spirit today. My peace comes before my miracle. If you wait for your circumstances to become perfectly smooth before you allow yourself to feel safe, you will spend your entire life being violently tossed back and forth by the unpredictable tides of this world. The world defines peace as the complete absence of conflict, the temporary quiet pause between crises. But the peace I give you is not fragile like that. It does not depend on a favorable medical report, a suddenly restored relationship, or an unexpected financial windfall. True enduring peace is not the absence of the storm. It is the undeniable, deeply rooted assurance of my presence with you inside the boat. Think of the vast, open ocean. On the surface, the water can be whipped into a terrifying frenzy by the gale-force winds. The waves tower and crash. The whitecaps churn in endless chaos, and everything looks entirely out of control. But if you dive just a few fathoms below that violent surface, the water is perfectly still. The marine life moves slowly, completely undisturbed by the hurricane raging above. The depths remain quiet, cold, and utterly calm, regardless of the weather in the sky. I want to build that exact same profound depth within your spirit. I want to anchor your soul so securely in my love that your internal state is no longer held hostage by what is happening on the surface of your life. To cultivate this quiet depth, you must deliberately choose where to focus your attention. Right now, your mind is a crowded, noisy room. It is filled with the shouting voices of your deepest fears, the frantic, exhausting calculations of how to survive tomorrow, and the endless, terrifying replay of your worst-case scenarios. You cannot possibly hear my gentle, reassuring whisper when you are constantly tuning your ears to the roar of the wind. We must begin the quiet, deliberate work of shifting your gaze away from the raging waters and fixing your eyes entirely on my face. Close your eyes for a moment. My child, in the quiet theater of your mind, visualize turning your back on the crashing waves. Yes, they are loud, and yes, they are intimidating, but they do not have the final authority over your life. Turn toward me. Bring your racing, scattered thoughts into captivity. When your mind tries to sprint ahead to tomorrow's potential disasters, gently but firmly pull it back to the present second. You are safe, right here, right now, in this singular, holy moment. Breathe in the reality that I am standing directly in front of you. Let my spirit begin to steady your trembling hands. You have been clenching them so tightly your muscles aching from trying to steer a ship that is caught in a hurricane you cannot control. Open your palms. Let the warmth of my presence wash over your exhausted, white-knuckled fingers. As you physically relax your body, choosing to stop fighting the current, your spirit will naturally begin to follow. This is the sacred practice of resting in me. It is an intentional moment-by-moment surrender, where you flatly refuse to let your circumstances dictate your joy. Instead of focusing on the overwhelming vastness of the problem, begin to focus on the infinite vastness of my promises. My word is a solid, immovable rock beneath your feet. When you stand on it, the ground will never give way, no matter how violently the earth shakes around you. Recall the times I have carried you through the deep waters before. I did not let you drown then, and I will not let you drown now. My character is flawless, my track record is absolutely perfect, and my love for you is as relentless and predictable as the morning sun. As this internal quietness begins to take root in the soil of your heart, you will notice a beautiful, profound shift in the way you speak to me. For so long, your prayers have been desperate, frantic pleas for immediate extraction. You have begged me to pull you out of the fire, to instantly change your situation, to fix the broken pieces right this very second, so you can finally stop hurting. It is a completely natural human response to pain, and I have never once condemned you for crying out for rescue. I collect every one of those desperate tears. But as you cultivate this profound inner peace, your heart will begin to crave something even deeper than an immediate miracle. You will begin to intensely crave intimacy with me. Your prayers will gently, beautifully transition from, "Lord, please get me out of this right now," to "Lord, please be near to me right here." You will discover the breathtaking truth that my presence in the middle of the fire is infinitely more valuable than a sudden escape from it. You are learning to prioritize, seeking my face over begging for my hand to move. And in that holy pursuit, something miraculous happens inside of you, long before the external miracle arrives. The desperation fades. The frantic, breathless panic begins to evaporate into the stillness. You realize that if you have me, you already have absolutely everything you truly need to survive this season. You are no longer waiting for a dramatic change in your circumstances to feel whole. You are completely whole right now, sustained by the bread of life, drinking deeply from the living water that never runs dry. Let this unshakable tranquility settle over your mind and heart like a thick, comforting blanket. Feel the profound, foundational calm that comes from knowing you are deeply loved, fiercely protected, and safely hidden under the shadow of my wings. The storm outside may still be raging. The winds may still be howling against the glass. But inside the sanctuary of your soul, there is a perfect, unbroken stillness. This internal quiet is not a temporary distraction or a fleeting moment of relief. It is the solid, immovable bedrock upon which your new, unprecedented courage will be built. You cannot fight the battles ahead if you are standing on shifting sand. But standing on this deep, divine peace, you are becoming entirely unshakable. You are no longer a fragile victim, reacting blindly to the chaotic noise of your life. You are a grounded, anchored child of the Most High, resting securely and comfortably in the very eye of the hurricane. And now that this quiet, solid foundation is firmly established in your spirit, your mind is finally clear enough to recognize the lies. You are finally ready to identify and silence the specific deceptive voices in the wind that have been desperately trying to pull you back into the panic. For a very long time, you have assumed that the cruel, relentless voice echoing in your mind was simply your own. You have listened to the insidious whispers telling you that you are fundamentally flawed, that you are entirely too weak for this journey, and that your current struggles are permanent proof of your inadequacy. You have absorbed these heavy toxic statements as if they were objective facts, allowing them to dictate your mood, drain your energy, and shape your identity. But my child, I want to expose the enemy's most effective strategy right now. The voices of doubt and deception rarely announce themselves with a shout. They do not come dressed as obvious threats. Instead, they slip in quietly, mimicking the tone and cadence of your own internal dialogue. They weave themselves seamlessly into your exhaustion, waiting for the moments when you are most vulnerable, most tired, and most isolated. They whisper that I have forgotten you. They suggest that you are destined to fail, that your situation is the one exception to my grace, and that you have finally strayed too far for my love to reach you. I need you to see these thoughts for exactly what they are. Carefully crafted, spiritual deception designed to pull you away from the safety of my presence. They are not the truth. They are not your thoughts. And they certainly do not come from me. Fear is a master manipulator, and its favorite weapon is your own memory. I watch as the enemy drags up the dusty files of your past, replaying every mistake you have ever made, every time you have stumbled, and every instance where you felt you fell short. The deception points a condemning finger at your history and insists that your past failures are an undeniable prophecy of your future ruin. It tells you that because you faltered before, you will inevitably falter again. This is a calculated attack to steal the joy and the peace I am offering you in this present moment. Fear wants to convince you that you are permanently defined by the chapters I have already closed and forgiven. But in my kingdom, your past does not dictate your position. When I look at you, I do not see a collection of failures or a series of unfortunate mistakes. I see a beloved redeemed child who is being actively transformed by my grace. You must recognize that whenever a thought brings suffocating shame and paralyzing condemnation, it is actively contradicting my nature. My conviction brings gentle correction and hopeful restoration. But fear only brings crushing despair. You cannot allow the enemy to weaponize your forgiven past against your current peace. Just as fear manipulates your past, it also weaponizes the uncertainty of your tomorrow. The voices of deception love to project catastrophic, terrifying scenarios onto the blank canvas of your future. They spin elaborate, horrifying illusions of financial ruin, permanent sickness, and incurable heartbreak, forcing you to experience the emotional agony of tragedies that have not even happened, and likely never will. They demand that you borrow deep, heavy grief from a tomorrow that does not actually exist. This is how the ambient noise of panic has remained so loud in your life. You have been living in the wreckage of a future storm that is only an illusion. But my child, the enemy has absolutely no authority over your future. He only has the power of suggestion. He can only paint frightening pictures and hope that you will stare at them long enough to lose your footing. The moment you recognize that these terrifying projections are simply smoke and mirrors, they lose their suffocating grip on your chest. You do not have to live inside the nightmares fear invents. You have the authority to step out of that toxic imaginary future and plant your feet firmly back in the safety of today, where my grace is actively sustaining you. For far too long, you have been a passive, quiet victim to this relentless broadcast. You have left the doors and windows of your mind completely open, allowing every stray anxious thought to wander in, take a seat, and set up camp in your living room. You have entertained these lies, pouring them coffee, and listening to their terrifying stories late into the night. But today, the passive listening ends. I am transitioning you from a defenseless victim of anxiety into a fierce, active defender of your own mind. I am calling you to establish strict, uncompromising spiritual boundaries. You are the appointed gatekeeper of your thoughts, and you have the divine authority to decide what is allowed to stay and what must immediately leave. When a thought knocks on the door of your mind, you do not have to automatically open it. You must begin to inspect it. Does this thought bring peace? Does this thought align with my absolute love for you? Does this thought produce hope, or does it produce panic? If a thought directly contradicts my promises, if it tells you that you are forsaken, unworthy, or doomed, you must refuse at entry. You must slam the door shut. This takes deliberate, consistent practice. The enemy will not easily surrender the territory he has occupied in your mind for so many years. He will continue to throw the lies against the glass, hoping you will eventually give in and listen. But I am giving you the strategy to dismantle his attacks. You do not defeat a lie by simply arguing with it. You defeat a lie by instantly replacing it with a specific, undeniable truth. When the whispering voice tells you that you are entirely too weak to survive this current hardship, you must not sit and ponder your own strength. Instead, you must immediately filter that anxiety through the lens of my word. You answer the lie by declaring that you are not relying on your own strength because my power is made perfect in your weakness. When the deception insists that you are completely alone and forgotten in your struggle, you do not entertain the isolation. You replace it with the concrete truth, declaring that I am near to the brokenhearted and that I will never leave you nor forsake you. You must become relentless in this practice. You must answer every single shadow with the blinding light of my grace. Think of your mind as a meticulously kept garden. For a long time, the invasive weeds of doubt and deception have been allowed to grow wild, choking the life out of your joy and suffocating the seeds of your faith. But now, you are putting on the gloves. You are actively pulling these lies out by the roots the very moment they sprout. When a thought of fear arises about your finances, you uproot it with the truth of my provision. When a thought of panic strikes concerning your family, you uproot it with the truth of my sovereign protection. You are no longer allowing the enemy to plant his toxic seeds in your soil. As you aggressively filter every anxious notion through the absolute truth of who I am, you will begin to notice a miraculous change in your internal atmosphere. The suffocating ambient noise of panic that used to be a constant hum in the background of your life will begin to fade. It will lose its volume. By refusing to feed the fear with your attention, you are actively starving the anxiety. You are taking back the territory of your mind, inch by inch, thought by thought, replacing the chaos with the steady rhythmic drumbeat of my unfailing love. I know this mental discipline requires effort, especially when you are already feeling so physically and emotionally drained. It takes genuine courage to stand up to the voices that have bullied you for so long. But I am right here with you, actively lending you my strength for every single eviction. You are not fighting this battle in the dark, and you are not fighting it alone. I am shining the bright light of my truth into the deepest corners of your mind, exposing every hidden lie and every subtle deception that has kept you bound. As you practice this active filtering, the heavy fog of confusion is lifting. The terrifying shadows are shrinking back. You are realizing that the enemy is a liar, a defeated foe, whose only weapon is a fragile illusion that shatters the moment it strikes the solid rock of my word. You are standing taller now. The trembling in your spirit is settling. You are no longer tossed about by every scary thought that drifts through your consciousness. You have established a firm, unyielding boundary around your peace, and you have chosen to dwell entirely within the truth of my grace. Feel the profound difference in the air around you right now. The relentless screaming voices of doubt have been silenced. The paralyzing weight of the enemy's deception has been entirely lifted off your shoulders. Your mind, which was once a chaotic, terrifying battlefield, is now becoming a quiet, clear, and serene sanctuary. You can finally breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the pure, untainted air of my presence. You are standing firm, eyes wide open, completely aware of the enemy's tactics, and completely unimpressed by his empty threats. The foundation of peace has been laid. The weeds of deception have been uprooted, and your heart is fully prepared. You have successfully cleared the space, and your spirit is now quiet, focused, and ready. It is in this beautiful, pristine clarity that we can move forward. You are no longer a defenseless target, standing unprotected in the wind. The ambient noise of panic is gone, and the silence is a holy, expectant canvas. You are now perfectly positioned and fully prepared for the spiritual armor I have uniquely crafted to protect you as you step into the light. Now that your mind is quiet and the suffocating debris of the enemy's deception has been swept away, you are standing in a beautiful open space. But I will not leave you standing here bare and unprotected. It is time to clothe you for the days ahead. I am wrapping you in the heavy, unbreakable protection of my word. For so long you have lived strictly on the defensive, constantly ducking and weaving, trying to avoid the next crushing blow life might deliver. You have treated your faith like a fragile glass shield, terrified that if the impact of your circumstances is too hard, your belief will shatter into 1,000 unrecoverable pieces. You have walked through your own life, flinching, anticipating the pain before it even arrives. But the armor I am providing for you today is not fragile, and it is not designed merely for you to survive a beating. It is designed to make you victorious. I am shifting your posture right now. You are no longer going to cower in the corner of your own story, holding your breath and bracing for the storm to hit. You're going to stand tall, completely secure, moving forward with a gentle, confident offense. This armor is forged entirely from the iron of my promises, and I need you to understand the absolute, undeniable weight of what that truly means for your daily life. When the world gives you a promise, it is often just a hopeful, fleeting wish. People offer you empty platitudes, telling you that things will eventually get better, or that time heals all wounds, or that you just need to keep a positive attitude. They mean well, but their words have no actual power to guarantee the outcome. Their promises are fragile, entirely subject to the unpredictable winds of changing circumstances, shifting economies, and failing health. My child, my promises are not wishful thinking. They are not polite, generic encouragements meant to simply make you feel a little warmer on a cold, difficult day. They are divine guarantees. When I speak a word over your life, it carries the exact same creative sovereign authority that called the blazing stars into existence and commanded the raging oceans to stay within their designated shores. My word does not return to me empty. It accomplishes exactly what I sent it to do. If I have promised to protect you, that protection is a concrete spiritual reality far more real and permanent than the temporary troubles you can see with your physical eyes. If I have promised to provide for you, that provision is already secured in the vaults of my kingdom, waiting to be released into your hands in my perfect timing. And if I have promised you ultimate victory, you can rest assured that the final chapter of your story has already been written in triumph. The enemy does not get the final word over your family, your health, or your calling. I hold the pen, and I have already secured your complete redemption. My promises are the solid, immovable rock beneath your feet. The fierce winds of life will absolutely blow against you. The rain will fall in torrents, and the floodwaters will occasionally rise to your knees, but this rock will never, ever move. Because I am eternally unchanging, the foundation you are standing on today is eternally secure. I want to show you exactly how to wear this armor every single day, turning your abstract theological belief into a highly practical daily shield against the physical sensation of fear. Tomorrow morning, before your feet even touch the cold floor of your bedroom, before you reach for your phone to check the news, and before the anxieties of the day have a chance to clear their throats and demand your immediate attention, I want you to actively wrap yourself in my truth. Lie there in the quiet dawn and deliberately put on my promises one by one, just as you would intentionally button up a heavy, insulated winter coat before stepping out into a freezing snowstorm. Start with the promise of my constant presence. Whisper to yourself in the stillness, "The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid." Feel the profound, settling weight of that truth draping over your shoulders. You are pulling the helmet of salvation over your mind, securing your unshakable identity as my fiercely loved child, and locking out the lies that tell you you are facing this day on your own. Next, strap on the truth of my provision. Remind your anxious heart that I have never once abandoned the righteous, and I know exactly what you need before the request ever forms on your tongue. Wrap this specific comforting truth tightly around your chest, guarding your heart from the piercing, icy arrows of financial panic and future uncertainty. You are consciously deciding that my faithfulness is your ultimate reality, overriding whatever the bank account or the medical chart might currently say. This intentional practice is what it looks like to move from a defensive, trembling crouch into a confident, holy offense. When you deliberately dress yourself in the perfection of my character, you stop frantically reacting to the world's chaos, and you start walking in divine, quiet authority. You are actively taking up the shield of faith, not as a desperate last resort, but as your primary strategy. This shield is not heavy because of your own exhausting striving. It is heavy with the sheer density of my faithfulness. When a terrifying thought about your health, your children, or your unknown future tries to launch itself at your mind, it will hit this shield and fall harmlessly to the ground, completely extinguished. You do not have to frantically dodge the arrows of the enemy anymore. You do not have to spend your precious energy constantly anticipating the next disaster. You simply have to stand securely behind the promises I have already spoken over you. There is a profound, liberating rest that comes when you realize the armor does the fighting for you. Feel the incredible, deep-seated security of knowing that your ultimate victory is not dependent on your flawless performance today. It is not dependent on your ability to outsmart the enemy or your capacity to perfectly manage your stressful circumstances. Your victory is entirely rooted in my unblemished, perfect character, because I cannot fail. The promises I have made concerning your life cannot fail. You are completely enveloped in a love that possesses the absolute power to overcome the entire world. Let this reality wash over you right now, soaking into your tired bones, until a surging divine confidence rises up from the very depths of your spirit. Feel your posture physically changing as this truth settles in. You are not a fragile, helpless leaf blowing aimlessly in the violent wind. You are deeply cherished, intimately known, and fiercely protected by the King of all kings. You are wearing spiritual invincibility, not because you are immune to earthly pain, or because you will never face another difficult day, but because absolutely no weapon formed against you can ever sever you from my eternal, loving grip. The suffocating anxiety that used to paralyze your limbs is being entirely replaced by a breathtaking, quiet strength that the world cannot comprehend. You can finally feel the solid ground beneath your boots. The armor is secure. The shield is resting firmly in your hand. The air in your lungs is fresh, clean, and filled with a glorious, unshakable hope. You are fully equipped, carrying the massive weight of my divine guarantees into whatever tomorrow brings. And now, clothed in this magnificent, unbreakable truth, with your heart beating in steady, peaceful rhythm with mine, you are completely ready to lift your foot and take those first real, tangible steps of renewed faith. You stand at the edge of the vessel, feeling the cold spray against your face. For so long you have stayed huddled inside this boat, clutching the wooden benches of your comfort zone, believing that safety meant staying completely still while the storm raged around you. But faith was never meant to remain purely internal, entirely hidden away in the silent chambers of your mind. The peace I have poured into your spirit and the armor of promises you are now wearing must be put into motion. It is time to transition from internal preparation to the daring reality of external application. I am asking you to do the very thing that previously made your chest tighten and your breath catch. I am asking you to step out of the boat and place your foot onto the surface of the unknown. This is the moment where your theology becomes your biography. It is the exact point where everything we have spoken about, my protection, my provision, and my perfect love, ceases to be just a comforting thought and becomes a living, breathing reality in your daily routine. The enemy does not mind if you feel peaceful, as long as it never motivates you to move. He wants you to remain paralyzed, sitting quietly with your armor on, but never stepping onto the battlefield. But I have not equipped you simply so you can sit comfortably in the dark. I have clothed you in my strength so that you can walk confidently into the light, proving to your own trembling heart that this quiet courage actually works. It is time to translate the divine assurance you feel in your soul into a deliberate physical choice in your waking life. I want you to identify one specific tangible step that scares you right now. You already know what it is. It is that difficult, heavy conversation you have been avoiding for weeks because you are terrified of the potential conflict and the raw vulnerability it requires. Perhaps it is the profound choice to finally offer forgiveness, actively releasing the bitterness you have used as a shield. Or maybe it is a frightening financial decision, choosing to trust in my provision rather than panicking over the unpredictable economy. Whatever that specific step is, it feels like a massive leap over a deep chasm. Your natural instinct is to calculate the distance, measure the wind, and determine that the risk is simply too high. But you are no longer operating on natural instincts. Your human mind desperately demands a complete blueprint before it will agree to move. You want to see the entire staircase, fully illuminated from the bottom step to the top landing, before you commit to lifting your foot. You want a written guarantee of how the conversation will end, how the finances will exactly multiply, or how the relationship will miraculously heal. But walking in faith means you do not get to see the whole staircase. You are only granted enough light to see the very next step. I am asking you to walk faithfully into the unknown, carrying nothing but the absolute certainty of my character. When you take that blind step, you are boldly declaring that my word is a lamp unto your feet, even when the horizon remains shrouded in heavy fog. Obedience does not require comprehensive understanding. It only requires profound trust. As you lift your foot to take this terrifying step, the familiar voice of panic will try to shout one last desperate warning. What if you sink? You remember the story of Peter walking on the water toward me and how he began to plunge beneath the waves the moment he looked at the wind. You are terrified of looking foolish, of making a mistake, of stepping out in faith, only to fall flat on your face and drown in the embarrassment of failure. Hear me clearly. My child, I do not demand a flawless, unwavering performance. Perfection is not the goal of this journey. The goal is closeness. The goal is your willingness to leave the safety of your own self-reliance to move closer to me. If you take this step, and your faith falters, if you stumble, and the wind momentarily catches you off guard, you will not drown. The very second you begin to sink, my hand is already there, reaching down to catch your arm and pull you up. I honor the bravery it took just to swing your legs over the side of the boat. I do not scold you for losing your balance. I celebrate the fact that you dared to walk on the water in the first place. You must release this paralyzing fear of doing it wrong. A stumble is never a permanent failure. It is simply part of the holy, messy process of learning how to walk in the miraculous. When you realize that my grace is a safety net, stretched beneath every single risk you take in. My name, the fear of falling, loses its suffocating grip. You can move forward, knowing that whether you walk perfectly on the surface or momentarily dip beneath the waves you end up in. My arms, either way, so make the phone call. Hit send on that difficult message. Open the bank account and make the choice based on quiet trust rather than frantic scarcity. As you take this small, deliberate action, pay very close attention to what happens inside your chest. In the seconds leading up to it, your heart will race and your palms may sweat. That is simply your body reacting to old fears. But the moment you actually take the step, the moment you push past the invisible barrier of your anxiety, you will feel a sudden breathtaking rush of divine relief. You will realize that the fear was lying to you all along. The water will hold you. The ground will not open up and swallow you. You will discover that the act of obedience carries its own profound reward, breaking the hypnotic spell the anxiety had cast over your mind. We are going to celebrate these small victories, every single one of them. The world applauds massive dramatic achievements. But heaven rejoices over the quiet, unseen moments when a fearful child chooses to trust their father. Every time you speak truth in love, despite a trembling voice, every time you forgive instead of retaliate, every time you rest instead of frantically worry, you are swinging a heavy hammer against the towering mountain of your anxiety. With every small act of obedience, you are chipping away at the stone. It may feel like you are only removing a pebble at a time, but these micro-actions are fundamentally rewiring your spirit. You are gathering undeniable real-world evidence that my promises are not just beautiful poetry, but practical structural beams that can actually bear the full weight of your real life. Do you feel the momentum beginning to build? What was once a stagnant, paralyzed pond is now a moving, rushing river. The first step was the hardest, requiring every ounce of courage you could muster. But the second step will be slightly easier, and the third step easier still. The heavy iron chains of fear that have wrapped around your ankles for years are actively snapping off link by rusted link with every forward motion. You are no longer just theorizing about faith and the safety of your sanctuary. You are actively living it out in the messy, unpredictable trenches of your daily routine. I am validating your bravery in real time, meeting you on the water and proving that I am exactly who I said I am. The armor is holding up perfectly against the wind. The shield is turning away the arrows just as I promised it would. Look at how far you have already come from the trembling, exhausted soul who was hiding in the dark just a short time ago. You are out of the boat. You are walking in a quiet, steadfast courage that you did not generate on your own. But as you find your footing on this new, miraculous ground, the atmosphere around you will begin to shift once more. Because I love you too much to leave you immature, and because the magnitude of the breakthrough awaiting you requires an unbreakable vessel, the temperature of this journey must now increase. To carry the true weight of the coming victory without reverting to your old habits of control, the last deeply hidden remnants of your self-reliance must be completely burned away. The heat you are feeling right now is not your imagination. My child, just as you begin to find your footing on the water, just as you start to experience the quiet courage of trusting me with your next step, It often feels as though the pressure suddenly intensifies. You might be looking around your life right now, wondering why the circumstances have seemingly squeezed you even tighter, why the silence in the waiting feels heavier than before, or why the friction in your daily routine has reached a sudden fever pitch. I know your human instinct is to panic. Your immediate reaction is to assume that you have done something wrong, that you took the wrong step, or that your newfound faith is somehow failing you in the critical moment. But I want you to look very closely at this intense pressure. This is not the crushing weight of defeat. This is the refining fire of final preparation. You have stepped out of the boat, yes, but before you can walk into the promised land of your breakthrough, the vessel of your heart must be completely purified. You see, it is one thing to step out in a brief moment of bravery. It is an entirely different spiritual reality to sustain a miracle without letting it ruin you. I love you far too much to hand you a massive victory that your character is not yet ready to carry. A profound blessing, when placed into the hands of an unprepared soul, quickly becomes a crushing burden. If I were to open the floodgates of answered prayer, while you still harbor deep hidden roots of self-reliance, you would instantly revert to your old habits of control. You would take the miracle, claim it as the result of your own endurance, and immediately begin agonizing over how to manage and protect it with your own two hands. You would simply trade the exhausting anxiety of the storm for the equally exhausting anxiety of maintaining the blessing. You would begin to worship the answered prayer rather than the God who provided it. That is precisely why this fire is burning so hot right now. This tempering process is a profound, deeply intentional act of my love. I am not trying to break your spirit. I am actively trying to burn away the brittle, fragile remnants of your pride so that your foundation is built entirely on me. When precious gold is refined, it must be subjected to intense heat so that every hidden impurity rises to the surface to be skimmed away. That is exactly what is happening in the deepest chambers of your spirit today. You are feeling the heat because the deep-seated impurities of your flesh are finally being forced to the surface, leaving you nowhere to hide from them. You are coming face to face with the quiet, subtle pride that still whispers, "You know better than I do," about how your story should unfold. You are confronting the lingering, deeply rooted belief that your ultimate safety is somehow tied to your own performance, your own intellect, and your own ability to maneuver out of a crisis. I am drawing these hidden things out of the shadows, not to condemn you, but to completely liberate you from their heavy chains. You cannot take these toxic, exhausting traits into the new season I have prepared for you. The atmosphere of your coming victory requires a heart of absolute humility and unmerited grace. It requires a soul that recognizes with joyful clarity that every good and perfect gift comes from my hand alone. As you endure this heat, you are learning the profound difference between surviving on your own frantic adrenaline and thriving in my sustaining power. You're discovering that when all your natural strength is completely exhausted, when every human backup plan is reduced to ashes, I am still standing right beside you, completely sufficient and entirely faithful. To finish this vital preparation, I must challenge you to walk through the hottest, most uncomfortable part of the fire. There are heavy, jagged stones you are still carrying in your pockets, stones that will pull you under the water if you do not drop them right now. I am speaking of the lingering bitterness you have been holding against those who have hurt you. I see the quiet resentment you nurse in your private thoughts, the unforgiveness you continuously justify, because the offense against you was so deeply unfair. I know the pain was real. My child and I saw every single tear that injustice cost you. I collected them all. But holding on to that grievance is a heavy, rusted anchor. It is tethering your spirit to a painful past when I am trying to launch you into a glorious future. You must let it go. You must open your tightly clenched hands and release the desperate demand for an apology that may never come. I am asking you to forgive them, not because they have earned it, not because what they did was right, but because your freedom is far too valuable to be held hostage by their mistakes. Let the intense fire of my love burn away the resentment right now, leaving your heart soft, pure, and completely ready to receive grace by extending it to others. Along with that unforgiveness, you must also surrender the last stubborn stronghold of your doubt. Even as you have learned to trust me in this journey, there is still a small hidden corner of your mind that constantly demands a contingency plan. It is the cautious voice that says, I will trust God with this situation, but I also need to figure out an emergency exit, just in case He does not come through in time. That is not complete trust, my child. That is a safety net, intricately woven out of fear. It is the late-night internet searches for alternative solutions, the frantic mental budgeting, the quiet rehearsing of worst-case scenarios, just so you are not caught off guard. I am asking you to cut the net. I am asking you to burn the ships of your alternate plans. You must come to the place where I am not just your best option, but your only option. When you finally release the desperate need to engineer your own rescue, you step into a level of spiritual maturity that the enemy absolutely cannot touch. The intense pressure you feel right now is the final agonizing pull of your flesh, fighting against this total surrender. Do not resist the process. Lean into the flames of this holy refinement, and let the heat do its perfect work. I am forging in you an unwavering battle-tested faith. Iron is only transformed into unbreakable steel when it is plunged into the blazing fire and then struck repeatedly upon the anvil. Every difficult moment of this prolonged waiting season, every time you have chosen to bless instead of curse, every time you have surrendered your timeline when you desperately wanted to rush ahead, you have been struck upon the anvil of my grace. You are becoming a weapon of peace in my hands. The fragility of your old nature, which used to shatter at the slightest disappointment, is being permanently replaced by a quiet, divine resilience. The anxiety that used to cripple your resolve now merely bounces off the hardened steel of your absolute trust in my character. You are learning to carry the heavy weight of uncertainty with a profound, beautiful grace, proving to the spiritual realm that your joy is no longer tethered to your physical circumstances. You are becoming someone who can safely be trusted with a miracle, someone who will look at the answered prayer and immediately lift your eyes to the heavens in pure worship, knowing exactly where the miraculous provision came from. You have endured the heat, my child. You have bravely allowed me to expose the hidden impurities of your heart, and you have chosen the painful, glorious path of letting them go. You have dropped the heavy stones of bitterness that were weighing down your soul. You have taken the knife of faith and severed the safety nets of your own human understanding. You have allowed the refining fire to completely burn away everything that was not built on the solid, unmoving rock of my truth. Do you feel the profound shift in your spiritual posture right now? Take a deep breath and recognize what has happened inside of you. You are no longer the exhausted, trembling, and fragile soul you were at the beginning of this journey. You are standing with the quiet, unshakable dignity of a child who has been tested in the furnace and has come out shining like pure, refined gold. You now possess a mature, tested faith that does not flinch at the changing of the wind or the roaring of the waves. You have been completely transformed by the fire emptied of your exhausting self-reliance and filled to the very brim with my unshakable, enduring peace. Look at the strength in your hands. Look at the clarity in your mind. The purification is finally complete. The vessel is strong, whole, and entirely ready. The long, difficult season of preparation has accomplished exactly what I intended from the very beginning, leaving you fully positioned, profoundly humble, and spiritually mature enough to finally receive the massive, life-altering breakthrough I have prepared. As you stand in the quiet aftermath of the fire, something entirely new is happening. The spiritual atmosphere in the room where you are sitting is actively, palpably changing. For years, the air around you has felt thick, heavy, and suffocating, clouded by the relentless smog of your anxieties and the oppressive weight of the enemy's intimidation. You have lived as though you were breathing underwater, fighting for every gasp of peace. But as you have yielded your heart and allowed the purifying flames to do their perfect work, a holy rushing wind has begun to blow through the corridors of your life. I am stepping fully into the open space you have courageously cleared for me, and my presence is aggressively pushing back the darkness that has surrounded you for so long. The shadows that used to terrorize you in the middle of the night, whispering that you would never make it, are shrinking, folding in on themselves, and fleeing from the blinding, majestic light of my glory. You can physically feel the temperature of the room shifting from cold fear to warm, radiant peace. The oppressive heaviness that used to sit squarely on your chest, making it so difficult to take a full breath, is evaporating into nothingness. The heavy yoke of fear that has dictated your choices, kept you isolated, and forced you to play small, is not just loosening. It is breaking. It is permanently shattering into 1,000 irrecoverable pieces upon the floor, never to be worn by you again. I want you to experience the breathtaking magnitude of what is happening in the unseen realm right now. This is not a subtle, quiet adjustment that you might miss if you look away. This is a massive seismic shift in your spiritual reality. The heavy iron chains of panic self-reliance and perpetual dread that have bound your wrists and weighed down your ankles for decades are snapping. They are not breaking because you finally mustered enough human strength to tear them apart, but because the sheer, undeniable force of my sovereign power has entered the room. I am the Lord of hosts, the commander of heavenly armies, and I have risen from my throne to defend you. I want you to suddenly and overwhelmingly realize the infinite scale of my power and the staggering depth of my love for you. The Creator who spoke the galaxies into existence, who measured the oceans in the palm of his hand, is actively moving on your behalf, wrapping you in a divine authority that makes the kingdom of darkness tremble. You have spent so much time believing the exhausting lie that you were a fragile victim entirely at the mercy of your circumstances, your finances, and your spiritual enemies. But as this shift unfolds, that lie is being permanently eradicated from your mind. You are feeling the undeniable, palpable reality that the one who lives inside of you is infinitely greater than any force that could ever rise against you. I am making a holy, irreversible declaration over your life right now, my child. Listen closely as my voice resonates through the depths of your spirit, vibrating with absolute truth. The season of your paralysis is officially over. The long, exhausting era of being held hostage by anxiety, waking up with a knot of dread in your stomach, and constantly anticipating the next disaster, has come to a permanent, decisive end. I am closing that dark chapter of your story forever, and I am locking the door behind it. Today, right in this exact moment, the era of walking in, my divine, unprecedented courage has officially begun. You are crossing a massive threshold in the spirit, stepping completely out of the barren, dry wilderness of intimidation and planting your feet firmly onto the sacred, solid ground of divine boldness. The enemy has spent years relentlessly trying to convince you that your destiny was to shrink back, to hide in the shadows, and to quietly survive a life of fear. But I decree from the throne of heaven that you are not a survivor. You are more than a conqueror. The spiritual enemies of fear, doubt, and despair that have relentlessly pursued you are experiencing their absolute crushing defeat today. I have stripped them of their authority over your mind. I have broken their weapons, and I have publicly triumphed over them. As this profound realization washes over you, pay attention to the new sensation rising up from the very bottom of your soul. It is a surging holy bravery that defies all human logic and earthly understanding. It starts as a quiet, glowing warmth in the center of your chest and rapidly expands into a fierce, unshakable boldness that is flooding your veins and steadying your hands. This courage looks completely different from anything you have ever experienced, because it has absolutely nothing to do with your own human fortitude. It is not the fragile, temporary adrenaline of positive thinking, nor is it the forced confidence of a desperate survivor trying to convince themselves that everything will be okay. This is my very own spirit, the spirit of the living God, rising up like a roaring lion within you. It is the exact same spirit that hovered over the waters of creation and raised Christ from the dead. And it is currently breathing absolute fearlessness into your weary bones. You are feeling the heavy, restrictive, suffocating garments of a victim slipping completely off your shoulders, replaced instantly by the royal blood-bought mantle of a victorious child of the Most High. You are realizing with breathtaking crystal clarity that you were never designed to cower before the storms of this world. You were designed to command the winds and walk upon the waves. Let the profound emotional release completely overtake you in this sacred moment. Do not hold back the tears welling in your eyes right now, for they are no longer tears of exhaustion, frustration, or defeat. They are the beautiful, cleansing tears of a soul that has finally realized its true, permanent freedom. You can finally stop bracing for the impact of the next disaster. You can finally stop holding your breath in terror. You can release the deeply ingrained, rigid posture of defense you have carried for so many agonizing years. The spiritual atmosphere has completely bowed to the authority of my name, and the very air you are breathing is now vibrantly charged with victory. You look around the internal landscape of your heart and realize that the terror is simply gone. The towering giants of fear that used to taunt you from the ridgeline of your future now look incredibly small, completely overshadowed by the towering infinite majesty of my presence, standing right beside you. You do not have to fight for this victory. You only have to stand firmly, confidently, and restfully within the absolute victory I have already accomplished on your behalf. The atmosphere is clear. The way has been miraculously prepared. The darkness has been unequivocally permanently defeated by the fierce, relentless light of my love. Every time you inhale, you are breathing in the unchangeable, magnificent reality of your new identity. You are a holy warrior who has been tested in the fiercest fires, protected by the strongest, most unbreakable armor, and filled to overflowing with a divine courage that cannot be shaken by the shifting shadows of this earth. The spiritual enemies that once paralyzed you with their whispered lies are now fleeing in 7 different directions, terrified of the blinding holy light that is now radiating from your purified, surrendered heart. You have endured the long, lonely night. You have faithfully surrendered your heaviest burdens. You have ruthlessly silenced the lies of the enemy, and you have boldly chosen to trust me when it made absolutely no sense to your natural mind. And now, because you have allowed me to do this deep, invisible, miraculous work within your spirit, the atmosphere is fully pregnant with the promise of my glory. The internal, heavy iron chains have been entirely obliterated, leaving you entirely free, completely whole, and perfectly positioned. The heavy yoke is permanently broken. The massive spiritual shift is complete. You have weathered the internal storm, and you are standing victorious on the other side, looking out at a horizon that is suddenly bright with promise. The stage is perfectly set, and the glorious dawn you have been waiting for with such desperate, quiet hope is finally breaking. Look up at the eastern horizon, my child. Do you see the first brilliant, piercing rays of gold breaking through the heavy, lingering gray of your long night? For so long, your eyes were painfully adjusted to the pitch black of the midnight hour. You spent countless hours searching desperately for even the faintest glimmer of light to guide your trembling feet. You sat in the cold, isolating darkness, wondering if the sun had simply forgotten how to rise over your specific life. You wondered if this prolonged, agonizing darkness was going to be your permanent reality. But I promise you, the dawn never fails, and my timing is never a fraction of a second late. Now that your heart has been completely emptied of its exhausting self-reliance, and beautifully, painstakingly rebuilt upon the unshakable foundation of my peace, the external world is finally responding to the massive internal shift. I am pulling back the heavy velvet curtain on the masterpiece I've been meticulously orchestrating behind the scenes while you were waiting, weeping, and trusting in the dark. The spiritual breakthrough you fought so hard for is no longer just a quiet reality resting in your soul. It is actively, miraculously manifesting in the physical, tangible circumstances of your daily life. The intense season of preparation has completely run its course, and you are stepping fully into the glorious, breathtaking vindication of your steadfast faith. The ground beneath your feet is no longer shaking. It is firm, illuminated, and ready for you to walk forward in absolute victory. Watch in absolute awe as the heavy iron doors that have stood locked and bolted before you for years suddenly swing wide open with effortless grace. Situations that human logic experts and statistics declared entirely impossible are unraveling and resolving right before your very eyes. I am moving the massive, immovable mountains you thought you would have to spend the rest of your life trying to climb. The deep financial hardship that kept you pacing the floor at 3 a.m, the heavy burden of lack that stole your breath, is being met with unexpected, overflowing provision. Resources are miraculously aligning, phone calls of favor are coming in, and avenues of income you never even considered are suddenly laying themselves out like a clear, brightly paved road. The broken relationships, the painful family conflicts, where words felt like shattered glass, and reconciliation seemed like a foolish fantasy, are experiencing a sudden, miraculous softening. Hearts that were previously hardened, defensive, and completely closed off by pride are being gently opened by my Spirit, paving the way for sincere forgiveness, honest conversations, and genuine, lasting healing. Even the terrifying illness, the physical ailments, and the anxious medical reports that hovered over you like a suffocating storm cloud are being touched by my restoring hand, bringing profound answers, comforting relief, and unexpected kindness from those entrusted with your care. Everything you thought was permanently lost, stolen, or ruined is being gathered up and redeemed by the Creator, who makes all things entirely new. You are witnessing the absolute limitlessness of my power when it is invited into a fully surrendered life. You are watching the scattered, broken, and seemingly unrelated pieces of your life come together in breathtaking real time. For so long, you held these jagged, sharp fragments in your hands, weeping because they made absolutely no sense to your human understanding. They looked like nothing more than the ruined debris of a failed plan, a chaotic mess of shattered hopes and unanswered prayers. But now, I am taking every single one of those painful, confusing pieces and placing them into their perfect, divinely ordained positions. You are finally seeing the magnificent, intricate mosaic I have been crafting all along. Every agonizing delay, every closed door that broke your heart, and every lonely pause in the wilderness was intentionally, lovingly designed to bring you to this exact, perfect intersection of my grace and your readiness. The timing of this deliverance is so flawlessly orchestrated that you cannot help but bow your head in overwhelming awe and profound, weeping gratitude. You realize now, with crystal clear divine hindsight, that if the answer had come even 1 month earlier, you would not have been spiritually mature enough to carry its massive weight. If it had come exactly when you begged for it in your panic, it would have been a fragile, temporary relief, instead of this robust, permanent generational blessing that will sustain you and your family for years to come. But I want you to look much deeper than the solved problems, my child. I want you to see the true, staggering beauty of this long-awaited miracle, the sudden financial provision, the miraculous physical healing, the beautifully restored family dynamic, the new doors of opportunity. These are all magnificent, generous gifts, but they are simply the wrapping paper. The true, priceless treasure inside this breakthrough is the tangible, undeniable expression of my unfailing, deeply personal love for you. This miracle is not a cold, distant transaction. It is a highly intimate, meticulously crafted love letter from your Heavenly Father, I am showing you through the very specific details of this resolution that I heard every single broken whisper that left your lips. When you thought you were completely forgotten, crying alone in your room, with the door shut against the world, I was standing right beside you, carefully collecting every single tear and accounting for every ounce of your pain. Absolutely nothing was wasted. Your sorrow was the very fertile soil in which this breathtaking joy was planted. This uniquely tailored breakthrough is my way of looking you directly in the eyes and saying, I have always seen you. I have always known exactly what you needed, and you have always been worth the wait. Remember how fear used to feel in your physical body. Remember the constant suffocating tightness in your chest, the shallow breathing, the racing pulse that woke you in a cold sweat. Before dawn, I want you to contrast that old, agonizing memory with the sensation currently flooding your entire being. Awe is washing over you like a warm, gentle wave. It is a holy reverence, a breathtaking realization that the God of the universe reached down into the messy, chaotic details of your specific life and gently untangled the painful knots you could not undo yourself. You are looking at the cleared bank statements, the clean health reports, the smiling face of the family member who has finally come home, and you are entirely speechless. Words simply cannot capture the magnitude of gratitude expanding in your spirit right now. You are falling to your knees, not out of desperate terror this time, but out of pure, unadulterated worship. You are weeping again, but these tears are entirely different. They are sweet, refreshing streams of absolute relief and overwhelming thanksgiving. You are feeling the physical weight of my goodness settling into the very rooms where anxiety used to live. Let the sheer, overwhelming wonder of this moment sweep you entirely off your feet. Breathe in the sweet fresh air of answered prayer. The heavy, suffocating exhaustion that has weighed down your bones and clouded your mind for months is completely gone, replaced instantly by a surging, vibrant energy and an irrepressible, bubbling joy. You are feeling a deep, profound vindication welling up in your chest right now. In the darkest, most terrifying moments of your night, when the enemy screamed that your faith was foolish, when the world coldly told you to simply give up, and when your own mind insisted that your hope was entirely in vain, you quietly chose to hold my hand. You chose to believe my promises when your natural eyes saw nothing but devastation, closed doors, and defeat. And now, you are standing in the radiant, undeniable proof that my word is absolute, unbreakable truth. The courageous trust you placed in me, even when your hands were trembling and your knees were weak, is being beautifully honored before the eyes of everyone who watches your life. The miracle is here unfolding in brilliant color in real time, and it is vastly more beautiful, more complete, and more satisfying than anything you could have ever asked for or imagined. The long weeping night has officially passed. The shadows have permanently retreated, and the morning song has finally gloriously begun. Step out into the warmth of this glorious morning song, my child. Feel the golden light resting on your face, finally drying the last traces of tears that marked your weary cheeks. The battle has been fiercely fought. The long season of waiting has gracefully concluded, and you are standing on the beautiful holy summit of your breakthrough. Look around at the vast sunlit expanse of your new reality. The suffocating atmosphere of dread is entirely gone, replaced by an expansive, breathable air of complete peace. You do not have to look over your shoulder anymore, waiting for the shadows to return and snatch this joy away. This victory is permanent, secured entirely by my hand, and sealed forever by my unfailing love. I want you to take a long, deep breath, unhindered by the tight, familiar grip of panic. You are completely safe. You are entirely free. I want you to look back, just for a brief moment, at the trembling, exhausted soul you were when we first began this journey together. Remember how incredibly small you felt sitting in the dark, convinced the crushing weight of the world was entirely on your frail shoulders. You were paralyzed, hiding behind thick, brittle walls of worry, absolutely terrified of making the wrong move. Now look closely at your hands. They are no longer shaking. Look at your physical posture. You are no longer curled inward in a defensive, fearful crouch. You are standing tall with your shoulders pulled back and your eyes fixed confidently on the bright horizon. The transformation is breathtaking to witness. You did not simply survive a difficult chapter. You were completely remade within it. You have emerged from the refining fire, not as a scarred, hesitant victim, but as a courageous, spiritually mature warrior. This profound bravery you feel right now is not a temporary surge of adrenaline. It is not a fleeting, fragile emotion that will magically evaporate the next time you face an unexpected inconvenience or a sudden roadblock. This quiet, unshakable courage is your new, permanent identity. I have completely rewired your spirit, replacing the fragile circuitry of human anxiety with the indestructible steel of divine trust. You no longer view the world through the distorted, terrifying lens of scarcity and fear. You view it through the crystal-clear lens of my sovereign grace. Fear no longer has a designated seat at your table. Its voice has been permanently evicted from the sanctuary of your mind. From this day forward, you are a person who walks boldly, speaks truthfully, and loves deeply, completely untethered from the paralyzing chains of intimidation. Because of this new identity, your relationship with the future has entirely changed. You no longer have to wake up bracing for an invisible impact. You no longer have to spend your precious energy calculating every possible disaster before you even pour your morning coffee. Instead, you are stepping into a permanent state of triumphant, joyful expectation. You can look at tomorrow and actually feel a genuine thrill of eager anticipation. You know whatever lies ahead is being meticulously filtered through my protective, loving hands. If there are brilliant blessings on the horizon, you will receive them with wide-open, grateful arms. And if there are new mountains to climb, you will approach them not with a sinking heart, but with a quiet, knowing smile, absolutely certain that the God who parted the waters behind you will seamlessly part the waters ahead of you. Let this profound, overflowing peace naturally transition into a pure, unhindered desire to worship. I see the overwhelming gratitude swelling in your chest, pressing against your ribs, demanding to be joyfully released. Let it out, my child. Lift your voice and let the beautiful song of thanksgiving pour from your liberated spirit. This is the highest, most beautiful form of worship. A melody birthed not in the easy, comfortable moments of life, but forged in the very depths of the barren wilderness. Your praise today carries a rich, heavy resonance because it cost you something. It was built on the tear-stained floor of your hardest, loneliest nights. When you worship me now, you are not reciting empty words. You are declaring a truth that has been fiercely tested and proven in the intense fires of your own life. Your worship is a triumphant banner, waving over the conquered territory of your mind. As you stand here holding the tangible manifestation of your breakthrough, I want to gently remind you of a vital grounding truth. The financial doors that have opened, the relationships that have been miraculously restored, the physical healing that has flooded your exhausted body, these are all magnificent, glorious gifts. But they are not the ultimate prize. The true, eternal reward of this entire journey is the intimate, unbreakable relationship we have built together in the dark. The miracle will make your earthly life vastly easier, but the deep, abiding intimacy with me is what will truly sustain your soul for all of eternity. You have learned the familiar sound of my whisper. You have memorized the steady, calming rhythm of my heartbeat. You have finally discovered that my presence is the true sanctuary, the only real home your spirit will ever know. I am extending a powerful, deeply moving invitation to you right now. Do not let go of my hand just because the violent storm has passed. Often my children cling to me with desperate intensity when the winds are howling, but slowly drift away when the skies turn blue and the sailing becomes smooth. I do not want to be just your emergency rescue plan. I want to be your daily constant companion. Continue to walk intimately with me in this beautiful new season of abundance. Let us walk these sunlit, easy paths together with the exact same closeness we shared in the wilderness. Bring me your joy, just as readily as you brought me your tears. Include me in the laughter, the mundane routines, the quiet moments of your day, and the beautiful, ordinary victories. Our glorious journey is not ending here at the breakthrough. It is only just beginning. I want to reassure you with absolute unwavering certainty that you are perfectly equipped for whatever the rest of your life holds. This world will always have its unpredictable rhythms, its shifting seasons, and its unexpected sudden turns. But no matter what tomorrow brings, you will never face it with the old, paralyzing fear again. You know far too much now. You have seen behind the curtain of the enemy's deception, and you have tasted the undeniable, staggering reality of my faithfulness. You know exactly who holds your hand, and you know the infinite extent of my power. The enemy can never drag you back into the dark cage of anxiety, because you now carry the blinding light of my truth inside your very bones. You are invincible, not because of your human strength, but because you are eternally anchored in mine. You are deeply, fiercely, and unconditionally loved. I am incredibly proud of the brave, steadfast choices you made when it was so profoundly difficult to keep believing. You endured the immense pressure you held on to the promise, and you allowed me to completely transform your heart. Now the heavy armor feels as light as a feather, and the shield of faith rests comfortably in your grip. Look out at the beautiful, bright, and perfectly ordained future I have explicitly laid out before you. The path is crystal clear, the warm sun is shining, and my grace is actively paving every single step of your way. It is time to confidently move forward, to step joyfully into the abundant life that has always been your divine inheritance. There is absolutely nothing left in this world to hold you back. Let us beautifully seal this victory with a quiet, heartfelt prayer. Heavenly Father, I come before you today with a heart absolutely overflowing with pure gratitude. Thank you for never leaving my side during the long, terrifying night, and for fighting battles I could not win on my own. Thank you for carrying my heavy burdens when I was too exhausted to stand, and for permanently replacing my crushing fear with your perfect, unshakable peace. I celebrate your absolute faithfulness in my life today. I ask for your continued loving guidance as I step into this beautiful new season. Help me to never forget the profound lessons of the wilderness, and give me the grace to walk in this new divine courage every single day. I trust you with my entire future, knowing that I am fiercely protected and deeply loved. May my life be a constant, joyful song of worship to you. In Jesus' name, amen.